Today's guest is Bethany Hsiao. She's an application developer at Dev Technology Group. And Bethany is an ACT-IAC Associates 2024 graduate and was part of a team writing a white paper on leveraging AI to modernize legacy code in federal civilian agencies, which is how we met because I was kind of liaison from emerging technology for her team. So Bethany, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jeremy.
So for those who haven't met you or heard about your story, including myself, talk a bit about where you're from, who you are, and what you do.
So my name is Bethany. I am an application developer with Dev Technology, as you introduced. I actually grew up in Rockville, Maryland, so Montgomery County, not too far from here at all. And I'm actually currently in Northern Virginia in Reston, so I've kind of just moved around the DMV a little bit. So I do delivery work with Dev Technology. I am a developer, and I was a computer science major in college, so this is kind of what I was preparing to do. Obviously, the experience in the actual government contracting industry has been very different from what we were taught in the classrooms, but overall, I think it's been great. And then you mentioned ACT-IAC as well, and that experience has been very eye-opening for me, and I think it's helped me understand more of what I actually do and the impact that we can have as developers.
So now, did you always want to be a software developer?
Um, I think I did from fairly early on. A large influence is my dad is an engineer. My brother was a software engineer. But funny enough, my sister has a medical background and my mom has a degree in chemistry. So
Wow.
very STEM family. But I think from early on, if I had to pick one of the two, I was like, I'm gonna go computers because I think they're cool. My classic story is that when I was little, my brother had a set of Lego Mindstorm, I
Oh
think is what it
yeah.
was called. Yeah. And I think that was my very first experience with coding, which is, I mean, it's great. You've got if statement, you've got basic logic, and you get to see the robot do it. And I think I did that and I was like, this is really cool. It got a lot more complicated, but I was lucky enough to have a lot of computer science classes and exposure and opportunity in high school. So we had uh, basic computer science classes, and we also had like AP computer science courses. So I was able to start building a foundation pretty early on. But funny enough, I think once I got into college, I started to think about what else I might want to do other than computer science. And it was a good time, I think, because I had access to so many different courses. And so when I was in college, I actually started pursuing minors as well. So I do have a minor in linguistics as well as Asian American studies.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned the Lego Mindstorm robots. When I was a developer, and I've been a manager for so long, it's hard to remember sometimes, but I volunteered with an organization where we worked with youth and
Mhm.
those robots specifically because you could use the Microsoft Development Suite to program them. You could use
Mhm.
Xbox controllers to control them, and it was just such a unique environment to try to expose people to software development. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yes.
So how did you pick where you wanted to go to college?
Um, so again, I grew up in Rockville. So the state school was Maryland. And I had members of my family who went to Maryland. And when I was applying to schools, actually, when I was applying to colleges, I applied to, God, I think it was like 15 different schools. So I was stressed and busy my senior year of high school. But I think one of the deciding factors was Maryland they have a like living learning programs that is part of their honors college, and I had applied to their cybersecurity one. I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. To be very clear, that was not I was not planning to focus in it, but I didn't know anything about it, and I thought that it would be really interesting to have that very immersive experience starting out in college. So when I got into that program, I think that was one of the things that really pushed me towards Maryland, on top of it being in-state, right? So that was
Mm.
big. And then I did happen to get a merit scholarship as well. So that kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah.
Um, I had been leaning and I was like, not really sure. And then once I got all the information, I was like early spring or something to Maryland. And one of the things that I did want to consider was staying close to home. I was and still am fairly timid at times, so I think I wanted to try to have a little bit of space, but not so much that I didn't feel like I couldn't come home, right? Or be near my parents if I needed to. So
Right.
Yeah.
So did the whole family become Terrapins fans?
Well, my brother went to Maryland and my dad did his grad degree at Maryland, so I think they already were. It was already
Uh,
too late for us.
that's right. That's right. I for years I tried to get my oldest son to go to Maryland because he had a fascination with turtles. So I thought, hey,
It's
I'll tr-
perfect.
yeah, perfect. It just didn't work out. He went someplace else, but
Yeah.
that's awesome. And Maryland has, if I recall correctly, one of the best computer science programs in the United States. They're up there. Like when
It
you're
is it
doing
is high up.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you're doing some of the government scholarship programs, it's on the list of schools they want people
hmm
to go to.
hmm And I know why I know this because actually a lot of my close college friends and classmates from that cybersecurity program go on to do the cybersecurity minor with the same program, and a lot of them actually end up being SFS scholars, which I think is I cannot remember what it's called, but the scholarship for students. It's one of the
Oh,
government ones.
the scholarship for public service.
Yes, I think that's the one. So I have a lot of my network is
Yeah.
actually funneled straight into government work from that program. And even with that program in particular, I think a lot of the events are sponsored by Northrop, by Leidos. It's very closely entangled, right, and sponsored and in partnership with a lot of the contractors and honestly a lot of defense in the area for good reason. And I think part of that is actually very helpful for the students because we learn a lot from the students, or a lot of it is alumni actually that come back and talk about their work, talk about how they
Mm,
got involved. And then there are also just employees and government and public workers who come back and tell us what the work actually entails. My college roommate actually went back recently to the cybersecurity program and talked about her work um, on like operational technology, which is great because you're not going to learn that from from a
right.
course, right? So yeah, it's a great program, and the computer science major as a whole, I think, is very well developed, and I think they work pretty hard to keep it current. And I'm very grateful to the program actually.
Yeah, those sorts of things. A school that does those sorts of things, bringing alumni back or people in to speak about real world experience. I think those are so important because many schools curriculum can't change fast enough
Yeah,
to keep up with the pace of technology. And so without that real world, sharing, it's kind of hard to mesh what you learn against what are you really going to do with it?
yeah, yeah. I think it's a very interesting mix between um, especially in this particular industry with technical skills plus real world application.
Hmm.
And I think it'd be very difficult to combine those, especially for students who don't have the opportunity to get thrown deep end first, head first into this world. But I think having the opportunity to start to see where some of the skills they're learning that can seem very monotonous or very isolated in just their like college curriculums or in their college courses, to see how those would actually get applied in the real world in risk analysis or in development or in cybersecurity, like infrastructure, into actual technologies, I think, or in actual departments, I think is really really interesting. Now, I'm gonna be honest, when I was a student, hearing from those students, I honestly think most of it probably went over my head. But there were moments where it clicked a little, right? And I was like, like this has real impact. These people are doing things with the skills that I'm currently learning, um, that can actually change someone's, ease or life or access to something and things like that. So little
Yeah.
just even just a little bit, I think it's good.
Yes, absolutely. So, how did a key part of going to school is figuring out where do you want to intern to try to, get a leg up on your career. How'd that happen for you?
So my first internship was with Leidos. Um, and I think these days, as a CS student, applying for internships, sometimes it can be really, really overwhelming, especially in an area like the DMV with Maryland, where everybody is applying to the same
Hmm.
6 defense contract. Like
Yep.
everybody is applying to the same people. And part of it is just where you get an opportunity, right? So I think a lot of times that can be emphasis with tools that you've messed with on your own. I think one of the things, and okay, I'm also a little biased because I do also run our internship program at Dev Technology. So there is some of this is seeping in, but I think one of the things people, especially hiring managers and talent, love to see is when students have a passion for it, and obviously the coursework is really good and very important, but if you can show that you've applied something in your personal life or that you care about it or that you're really interested in it, I think that really speaks to a lot of people.
Mm.
So I think with Leidos, I had a really good opportunity. I was working on a contract with NHLBI with NIH over in Bethesda, and this was, I think, the experience where I realized that the work that we were doing, which at first felt very secluded, and it was just like, oh, I'm just working on this form. Like, why am I spending so much time making this form so like usable and better when like it doesn't seem like it's that important? But I went to my first client meeting and demo with the project owner or the business owner. And I realized that the reason we were modernizing this form was because end users were spending days and days and days doing the utility of this form in a Word document and passing it back and forth all day, when it could be done in like 7 clicks. So I think it hit home a little bit when I realized how much time we could actually help someone save. And then from there, I think the one of the benefits from the internship was learning what I really was interested in and learning what I wanted to look for, honestly, in my next one, right? I knew I wanted to try a smaller company. I knew I wanted to stay in the same line of work. And I knew that I wanted an opportunity where I could learn even more about that business side and learn even more about that logic and that application.
Oh, and I would say small business gives you more exposure to all the things that are happening.
Yes.
So then you did that, right? Your second internship was with DevTech?
Yes, it was. I was at a career fair at Maryland. It was their computer science career fair, and I was in line for actually another company. I can't remember which one it was actually. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a long line. And I was standing there. It was my last resume that I had in my little portfolio, and it was such a long line. It wasn't moving, and I think somebody at the table behind me turned around or tapped me and was like, "That line's not going anywhere. Do you want to just talk to us?" And I turned around, and it was John Janik, who's now our CTO at Dev Technology, and I spoke with him, and I spoke with one of the recruiters there, and we had a great conversation about my experience at Leidos, about the fact that I was really interested in the business applications, but I still wanted to do development work. Right, I was very clear that I kind of wanted both, and I felt like I was asking for too much. And his response was like, "We'd love to do that, and you can do both those things and shadow a BA and be a BA intern, but still do development work." I was like, I did not think this was going to happen from this conversation. And I think I applied. And later that day, I had a phone interview, or later that week, I had a phone interview with one of the PMs, and I had a role like a week later. And this is actually fairly late in the application process. I think this was March. So I was feeling a little desperate at the time. And this was also 2020. So it was supposed to be an in-person internship, and then everything
Yeah.
shut down. And I actually assumed that they were going to cancel the internship. And instead, actually, I'm still pretty impressed with how Dev pivoted really fast and turned the whole thing into a remote internship. And it was probably some of the most fun I've had with my peers that summer, because uh, we had a really good time. Because the Dev Technology internship, you do your contract work where you were working on a real full-time team, you're doing all that stuff, and you're learning on the fly with the contract, with the kind of with the guidance of the team. But they also put you on a project internally with the other interns who are very spread out on different contracts. So really good mix of learning how to
Yeah.
balance my time remotely and multiple projects. So
Oh, I love it. I love
yeah.
that. So then when you graduate and you're looking for a job, how did that work out?
So this was interesting. I at the end of that summer with that first internship with Dev, I was a rising senior. And the company basically asked if I'd be willing to stay on part-time throughout my senior year. And uh, just work with the team as I was able to, based on my class schedule, exams, all that. And I said that I'd love to, partly because I thought the work was interesting and I wanted to see where it was going to go, and also partly because I wanted to make a little money in my senior year. Um, so I stayed on, and it was actually it was very flexible work because I was doing development work essentially, and or help desk support. So it was actually very flexible lifestyle because I could just pick up tickets as I was able to. And then as we got closer to my graduation date, they offered me a full-time offer. And I did speak with them about what I was looking for and if it'd be possible to continue on with them full-time. And I kind of just transitioned fairly seamlessly from part-time to full-time because it was the same contract. But yeah,
That is
uh,
that is brilliant on their
yes.
part, by the way, because
And we have continued to do
it's
that.
a brilliant move. Because if you do something like that where you work with seniors as they're finishing out college and you get them integrated into learning what it means to work and getting the incentive of some money and some experience and some unique opportunities, why wouldn't you take
Yeah.
an opportunity to stay with them, right? And so, well, I mean, it doesn't hurt a company to have interns that don't end up there, right? They still
Mhm.
get the benefit of helping somebody and the culture that it generates
Mhm.
at the company. But it's brilliant for their pipeline that they can
Yeah.
say, we have somebody in the wings, we're ready to bring them in. I love it. I love what they did.
Yeah. It is. It is really. I think it's really efficient. And you mentioned culture. Like I think the interns. I mean, I'm biased because I'm a former intern, but I really do think the interns add a lot because we do now that we're can do hybrid or do in person again. We do have them actually come into the office because one of the biggest pieces of feedback we were getting from our interns is that they loved the time they had in person in the office because. I mean, including me, most college students have not had the opportunity to work in an office setting in close collaboration with their peers or even with full-time employees because everything is hybrid, everything is remote. So I think they really enjoy being able to kind of experience that.
Yep.
And then, like you said, they're familiar with the contract, they're familiar with the work, they're familiar with the processes, and then to have them to graduate and just come right on is it's I think it's win-win for everybody.
So anybody out there listening who has a small company, there's your pipeline
Yeah.
for employment, right? Work to bring in interns and then you get the pick. I mean, this is interesting. Microsoft has got an internship program,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had a few friends get have their kids go into it. And at the end of that internship program, they pick the ones they want to keep for
Mm-hmm.
full employment, and then they offer them up to other tech companies and say, hey, it's not that they're bad. It's just that we don't have enough slots. And but here's the program they went to, and it's a very well
Yeah.
recognized internship program. So something similar, DevTech is investing in interns, even if
Mm-hmm.
they don't end up staying with the company for a variety of reasons, right? It's not maybe a fit either direction or one way. That's still a a well-rounded person who's taking that experience and now has an opportunity to get back at another
Mm-hmm.
organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, what's something about how, that you would change? What's something you would change? Like, so you've done your career, start and you did the internships and you did your school programs and you've got your job going and you're even contributing by helping lead the internship program. What's something when you look back, you wish could have been done differently, that maybe it was a roadblock you ran into as you're trying to figure out how to start things that would make it easier for somebody else who's trying to do that now?
I think one thing, and to be totally honest, if I went back in time, I don't even know if I would have been able to change this. But when I first started working, including as an intern, including when I came right on full time, I was I think, very afraid of um, speaking up, whether it was with a question, whether it was with something that I had an issue with, whether it was just something I was curious about. I think I had a lot of trouble forming some of those thoughts into words that I wanted to get out, and let alone that, like, I think I had trouble finding the motivation to figure out who to talk to, figure out
Mm.
who would have an answer, or even ask someone, right, who I could talk to. And I think the more comfortable I've gotten in my role, and honestly, the more involved I've gotten with corporate initiatives, with things like ACT-IAC and raising my hand for certain things, the more I realize that it's just about saying something out loud. Because um, I recently also I've transitioned onto a new contract that I'm really excited about, and part of that is because I wanted to move on. And if I'd never said anything, I never would have. And the only reason I knew that they might want me on something else is because I asked, right? Like I spoke to my manager, but I also spoke to people around the office who I knew might know about some of the other contracts or some of the other opportunities and could give me just information, right, on what was out there. So I think one of the things that I would change, honestly, is just a little bit of just a slap on the back to be like, it's okay.
Yep.
It really is, and people are not going to be out to get you. Just as a coming straight out of college, every time my manager messaged me, I'd be like, "Oh my God, this is it. They're gonna fire me now. They found something." And I mean, obviously, I never got fired. No, it was never that was never an issue. But I think there's just so much anxiety with starting a position, especially when it's a remote team, because you're missing so much of the face. You can't read their faces. You can't. And I think I rely on that a lot as a communicator. um, so missing that, I think maybe that's another thing that I would change, is just being brave enough about asking to have someone turn their camera on, because
Mm.
I think it changes a lot of interactions from something that's at higher risk for miscommunication to something very simple. Um,
No, I so believe that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we call it imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Where that not the unwillingness to speak up because you're afraid that they're going to finally decide, oh,
Yeah.
this person's been here all. Why are they here?
They're going to finally realize that I was not qualified for this.
Right, which
Yeah.
is which is so funny because everybody who hires somebody out of college knows you're not qualified
Yep.
for something. It's the life experience you're going to get that's going to make you qualified.
Yeah.
Because, like I said earlier, college does not. It's got very useful skills. I'm never going to tell anybody not to go to college. Although
Yep.
I would also say there are other ways if that's
Yep.
not something you want to do. But being able to dive in and just figure it out, because it's not the
Yeah.
same. It's not the
Yeah.
same. It's not textbook.
It's really about attitude, I think.
Yeah.
And that's true for when we hire interns. It's true, I think, for when we are looking for any person.
Yeah.
You can teach someone technical skills, you can teach someone processes, but if someone has that attitude and the ability to communicate and learn and be flexible, that's, I think, people who have those skills should feel confident in them.
Yes.
And it's okay. And it's so, the idea that it's okay to mess something up. It's so simple. I know everybody says it, but like to really to really live in that discomfort and then be okay with it and continue to fail is a very uncomfortable thing. Um, don't
Yeah.
like it. I still do my best to avoid it, but the
But
longer you put it off, the worse it gets.
you're in information technology. It is a part of life in information
Yes, it is.
technology.
Yes, it is. Agile methodologies,
That's right.
the name of the game. So
Uh,
no
yeah.
other options.
Wow. So Bethany, what do you see yourself? What are you looking for when you're kind of crafting your career, thinking forward?
God, this question for a lot of different people recently. Um, I think just the last couple of years and how my work has branched out a little bit, my work with interns, my work with some of the young professionals at the company, I realized that I really like working with people. I think that's my favorite part of the corporate initiatives that I volunteer to help out with. That's part of my favorite part of my actual day job. It's that collaboration portion. Um, I'm actually currently in people care management training, so I'm have started on a slightly altered route, but I think starting to learn about that route and starting to figure out what that means for me and how much I have to learn there is next. It's going to be a lot of learning. I'm certain. and also a pretty big shift, right, from the responsibilities that I've held up until now. And I think part of that challenge is going to be balancing because I'm still a developer, right? It's just making sure that I am balancing both sides of that. Um, but I'm excited. I think it'll be really fun. And I think that it is really going to tie in all my favorite things that I get to do every day, which is solve problems, hopefully, and also get to interact with people and learn about them and support them as best I can. So that's
Wow.
the direction I'm hoping for it to take.
Oh, I think it absolutely will. I mean, I very much enjoyed working on the white paper project with you and listening to you all as you try to work through the challenges of working with a large
Finagle. Oh
organization
yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you for
and
your help, by the way.
strong personalities, right? As you try to craft your language and somebody has an opinion, you have to figure out how do I balance their opinion against what I'm trying to really say.
Yep.
So I think you have a bright future, and Bethany, I can't wait to see where it goes. So thank you for joining me on this podcast, and I hopefully will see you in person sometime soon.
Yes, it was so great chatting with you, Jeremy.